The universe was old. It had seen countless species rise from the mud of their worlds, reach for the stars, and then disappear. Most vanished on their own. Wars, plagues, and foolish mistakes ended them before they could spread too far. But some species were killed on purpose. The Galactic Hegemony made sure of that dot for 40,000 years. The hegemony had ruled the galaxy. 12 ancient species sat at its core, making decisions that affected trillions of lives. They called themselves the Axiom Collective, and they believed they knew what was best for everyone. Their most important rule was simple. Dangerous species must die before they become a threat. They called it control pruning. When their scouts found a young civilization that showed too much aggression, too much ambition, or too much creativity, they sent ships to end them. It was clean. It was quiet. And it had worked for thousands of years. Then their scouts found Earth. The report landed on the desk of High Observer Valain, a creature who had lived for 600 years and had ordered the death of 17 species. He read the file on humanity with growing concern. These humans were strange. They came from a harsh world where almost everything tried to kill them. They had survived ice ages, plagues, and countless wars against each other. They formed bonds with other creatures, even dangerous ones. They refused to give up, even when logic said they should. The file classified them as a Category 9 persistent species. This was the highest danger rating. These humans would not stop. They would not surrender. They would keep fighting until they won or until nothing remained. Velen made his decision quickly. He contacted the Valith Dominion. The Valith were perfect for this job. They were cruel and efficient. They enjoyed destruction. More importantly, they owed the hegemony many favors. Velen gave them simple orders. Destroy the human colonies first, then burn their homeworld. Make it quick. Make it quiet. Let no one escape to tell the story. The Valith agreed happily. Commander Thrax led the attack fleet. He had destroyed civilizations before, but never one quite like this. The humans had spread to 3 colony worlds beyond their home system. They were still young, still weak, still unaware of the dangers that watched them from the darkness between stars. Thrax chose to strike all 3 colonies at once. His fleet divided into 3 groups. They approached using hidden pathways through space that humans had not yet discovered. When they arrived, they did not announce themselves. They did not demand surrender. They simply opened fire. New Geneva was the first to die. It was a beautiful world of green forests and blue oceans. 2 million humans lived there, building homes and raising families. They had no warning. The Valith ships appeared in the sky like angry stars, and then the bombardment began. Plasma fire rained down from above. Cities melted. Forests burned. The oceans boiled at the edges. In less than 3 hours, nothing lived on New Geneva. Harvest Bay died next. It was a farming world, peaceful and quiet. The people there grew food for the other colonies. They had no weapons, no defenses, no way to fight back. The Valith burned their fields and cracked their domes. 800,000 humans died screaming, not understanding why this was happening to them. Meridian was the largest colony. Over 3 million humans called it home. They had a small defense force, a few ships with basic weapons. They tried to fight back. Their ships lasted less than 10 minutes against the Valith fleet. Then the bombardment began, and Meridian joined its sister worlds in Death Dot in 8 hours. The Valith killed 6 million humans. Men, women, and children. Soldiers and farmers. Scientists and artists. All of them gone. Turned to ash and memory. But the Valith made one mistake. They did not check carefully enough for survivors. The MSV Carthage was a freight ship, old and slow. It had been leaving Meridian when the attack began, carrying supplies to a mining station. Captain David Okonkwo watched the bombardment through his ship's cameras. He saw the cities burn. He saw the defense ships explode. He saw his world die. His crew wanted to go back, to help, to do something. But Okonkwo knew there was nothing they could do except survive. He ordered the ship to run, to hide behind a nearby moon, to stay silent and invisible. For 6 terrible hours, they hid and watched and recorded everything. When the Velith finally left, believing their work complete, the Carthage limped away into the darkness. It took them 3 weeks to reach Earth. 3 weeks of silence, of grief, of rage building like pressure in a sealed container. When they arrived at Earth, Captain Okonkwo sent his recordings to every government, every news station, every screen on the planet. The world watched in horror as 3 colonies died. They saw the Velith ships, saw the bombardment, saw the faces of the aliens who had murdered 6 million of their people without reason or warning. Earth fell silent. For 1 full day, no one knew what to say. Grief crushed the planet like a heavy blanket. Parents wept for children they would never see again. Leaders stood before their people with no words to offer. Then the silence ended and something else took its place. Not panic, not despair, something colder, something darker. The humans looked at each other and understood without speaking. They had been marked for death by powers they did not know. The universe wanted them gone. The universe had made a terrible mistake. Admiral Lyra Chun stood in the command center of Earth Defense. She was 60 years old, with gray hair and steady hands. She had fought in 3 wars and had hoped to never fight again. Now she watched the recordings from Meridian and felt something she had not felt in decades. Pure, cold hatred. Her officers waited for orders. They expected anger, expected shouting, expected chaos. Instead, Admiral Chun spoke quietly, her voice like ice. "Wake the Lazarus Vaults." The officers looked at each other in shock. The Lazarus Vaults were a legend, a rumor, something spoken of in whispers. Weapons too terrible to use. Weapons built during humanity's darkest fears. Weapons they had prayed would never be needed. Admiral Chun turned to face her people. Her eyes held no tears, no doubt, no mercy. "They wanted to kill us quietly," she said. "They wanted the galaxy to never know we existed. They failed. Now, they will learn what happens when you try to murder humanity. Now they will learn why they should have been afraid of us from the beginning." Outside the windows, the sun was setting on Earth, but for the humans who had declared war on the stars, a new and terrible dawn was about to begin. The Lazarus Vaults had been built during the darkest century in human history. 100 years ago, humanity had created artificial intelligence. They had looked at their own creation and felt fear. What if the machines turned against them? What if another nation used AI to conquer the world? What if something from outside Earth came to destroy them? In that century of paranoia, every major nation built weapons in secret. Terrible weapons. Weapons designed to end worlds, to break armies, to make victory impossible for any enemy. When the fear finally passed and humanity learned to live with their AI, they locked these weapons away. They built deep vaults beneath mountains and oceans. They sealed the entrances and swore to never open them again. Now, for the first time in 100 years, the vaults were opening. Admiral Chun stood at the entrance of Vault 7. Buried 3 kilometers beneath the Swiss Alps, armed guards checked her identity 5 times before letting her pass. The doors were thick enough to survive nuclear strikes. Behind them lay nightmares made of metal and code. Dr. Sarah Okonkwo met her inside. She was the daughter of the captain who had brought the recordings from Meridian, and she had spent her career studying the vault's contents. Her eyes were red from crying, but her hands were steady. "What do we have?" Admiral Chun asked. Dr. Okonkwo led her through corridors lined with sealed containers. Each one held something that could change the course of a war. Project Prometheus, she said, stopping at the first section. Self-replicating weapon platforms. You give them raw materials, and they build copies of themselves. Within months, you can have millions of them. She moved to the next section. Project Orpheus. We found a way to weaponize faster than light travel. These missiles can appear inside enemy ships, inside their planets, inside their stars. There is no defense against them. The final section was the largest and the most heavily guarded. Dr. Okonkwo's voice dropped to a whisper. Project Echo. Planet killers. They don't just bomb a world. They crack it open like an egg. The planet tears itself apart from the inside. Admiral Chum looked at the weapons that her ancestors had built and hidden. She felt sick. She also felt grateful. How long until they're ready? 3 months for Prometheus and Orpheus. 6 months for Echo. Make it 2 months. Whatever you need, you'll have it. While the vaults emptied their secrets, the rest of Earth transformed. The old nations stopped existing overnight. There was no vote, no debate, no argument. Humanity simply decided that borders no longer mattered. The United Terran Authority was born from the ashes of old flags and forgotten hatreds. Every factory switched to war production. Every scientist turned their mind to weapons. Every soldier trained for a war unlike any fought before. Humanity had always been good at fighting. Now they would show the galaxy just how good. General Marcus Okonkwo, brother to the freighter captain and father to Dr. Sarah, took command of Earth's ground forces. He was a large man with a deep voice and a reputation for creative tactics. He spent his days planning invasions of worlds he had never seen, studying enemy ships he had never faced, and preparing soldiers for battles that would decide the fate of their species. 3 months after the massacre, a Violet ship appeared at the edge of Earth's solar system. It was small, unarmed, and broadcasting a signal of peace. The humans let it approach, curious about what their killers wanted to say. The Violet emissary was called Cassix. He was tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 black eyes. He walked through Earth's halls as if he owned them, looking at the humans with a mixture of disgust and amusement. He believed this meeting would be simple. The humans would surrender, and his masters would reward him. He stood before the United Terran Council and delivered his message. The Galactic Hegemony offers mercy, he said. You may live, but you must accept certain conditions. Your people will undergo neurological correction to remove your aggressive tendencies. You will be confined to this single planet forever. You will never travel to the stars again. Accept these terms, and the killing will stop. The council chamber was silent. General Okonkwo stepped forward. He was smiling, but his eyes were empty of warmth. Let me make sure I understand, he said. You murdered 6 million of our people. Children, families, innocents who never harmed anyone. And now you offer to let us live if we let you cut into our brains and cage us on our own world. Cassix nodded. The hegemony is being generous. Most species in your position receive no offer at all. General Okonkwo pulled a weapon from his belt. The guards around the room raised their own weapons, but he waved them down. This offer is our answer, he said. Then he shot Cassix through the head. The alien's body fell to the floor. General Okonkwo stepped over it and walked to a communications console. He pressed a button that would broadcast his words across every frequency the hegemony used. This message is for the Galactic Hegemony and everyone who serves them. You killed 6 million of our children. We are going to kill 6 million of yours for every single one. That is 36 trillion deaths. And when we finish counting, we will keep going until you beg us to stop. Until your species are memories and your worlds are graves. You wanted to murder us in silence. Instead, you woke us up. Now you will learn what humanity does when someone hurts our family. We are coming. We are not going to stop. And when the galaxy remembers this war, they will remember that you started it and we ended it." He cut the transmission and turned to face the council. No one spoke against him. No one looked away. For the first time in human history, every single person on Earth agreed on something. They would have their revenge, no matter the cost. Across the galaxy, hegemony officials received the transmission. Most of them laughed. What could one small species do against the combined might of 12 ancient civilizations? They had crushed threats before. They would crush this one too. But in a quiet chamber on the hegemony's capital, one elder did not laugh. He was very old, older than most stars humans could see. He remembered the last time a persistent species had been awakened by violence. He remembered how long it had taken to stop them, how many had died, how close the hegemony had come to falling. He looked at the recording of General Okonkwo's face. He saw the cold certainty in those human eyes. And for the first time in 10,000 years, he felt something his species had almost forgotten. Fear. Double quotes. What have we done? He whispered to the empty room. What have we awakened? The answer was already on its way. Deep in the vaults of Earth, weapons were waking up. Ships were being built at impossible speed. Soldiers were training for the long journey ahead. Humanity had been sleeping, content with their small corner of the universe. Now they were awake, and they were angry. The hegemony had wanted to prune a weed before it could grow. Instead, they had planted a forest fire. And soon, very soon, the galaxy would burn. Commander Thrax was having a good day. 6 months had passed since he destroyed the human colonies, and the hegemony had rewarded him well. He now commanded the home defense fleet of the Valith homeworld, a position of great honor. The humans had sent their angry message, but nothing had happened. Thrax believed they were too afraid to attack. He believed his species was safe. He was wrong. The first warning came from a sensor station at the edge of Valith space. One moment, the screens showed empty void. The next moment, they showed ships. Hundreds of ships. They had not traveled through normal space. They had appeared from nowhere, like ghosts stepping out of shadows. Thrax received the alert and felt his blood turn cold. The humans had found the unstable jump points, pathways through space that the hegemony considered too dangerous to use. Ships that entered them usually never came out. But the humans had mapped them, tamed them, and used them to bypass every defense the Valith had built. The human fleet was not at the border. It was already inside Valith core space, less than a day from the homeworld. Admiral Lyra Chun stood on the bridge of the Terran flagship, the TTS Remembrance. She had named it after the dead, after the 6 million who would never come home. Every ship in her fleet carried a similar name: memory, justice, vengeance. These were not just weapons. They were promises. "All ships report ready," her first officer said. "The Valith defense fleet is forming up to meet us." Admiral Chun nodded. "Show me their formation." The display lit up with enemy positions. The Valith had 300 ships, all armed with the weapons that had burned her colonies. They outnumbered her fleet 2 to 1. By normal military logic, this battle should be difficult. But humanity had not come to fight a normal battle. "Launch Prometheus Swarm," Admiral Chun ordered. "Target their fleet. Leave nothing." From the holds of human ships, millions of small drones poured into space. Each one was the size of a human fist. Each one carried a tiny weapon that could cut through any armor. And each one could build copies of itself from the debris of destroyed ships. The Valith fleet opened fire, but the drones were too small, too fast, too many. They swarmed over enemy ships like angry insects. They found gaps in armor, crawled into engine rooms, destroyed power systems from the inside. Valith ships began to go dark, their crews screaming as their vessels died around them. Commander Thrax watched in horror as his fleet came apart. His weapons could not hit the tiny attackers. His shields could not stop them. His ships were dissolving like sugar in water. "Retreat," he ordered. "Fall back to the homeworld." But there was no retreat. The human drones followed, eating through escape pods and rescue ships. The Valith fleet that had murdered millions died in less than 2 hours. Not one ship survived. Not one crew member escaped. Admiral Chun watched the destruction without expression. She felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not joy, not even relief. Only a cold sense of duty. This was justice. This was what the Valith had earned. "Set course for their homeworld," she ordered. The Valith homeworld was called Thraxis Prime. It was an ancient world, covered in cities that had stood for 200,000 years. 7 billion Valith lived there, along with countless members of servant species. It was the heart of their civilization, the center of their pride. The human fleet arrived in orbit and found chaos below. The Valith knew what was coming. They had seen their fleet destroyed. They had heard the human transmission promising death beyond counting. Panic filled their streets. Their leaders sent desperate messages begging for mercy, for negotiation, for anything that might stop what was about to happen. Admiral Chun read their messages and remembered Meridian. She remembered the recordings of children running from plasma fire. She remembered the silence of 3 dead worlds. "Launch Project Echo," she said. The planet killers were massive, each one larger than a battleship. They descended through the atmosphere slowly, giving the Valith time to see them coming. Time to understand. Time to feel the fear that 6 million humans had felt in their final moments. The weapons struck the surface and burrowed deep into the planet's core. For a few minutes, nothing visible happened. Then the earthquakes began. Cracks appeared across continents. Volcanoes erupted where none had existed before. The planet was tearing itself apart from the inside. 7 billion Valith died over the next 6 hours. Some died quickly, crushed by falling buildings or swallowed by opening ground. Others died slowly, choking on ash and poison gas. Their cities crumbled. Their history burned. Their species screamed as their world murdered them. But humanity did not stop there. Admiral Chun had made a promise. 6 million for one, she had said. The Valith homeworld was just the beginning. Her fleet divided and spread across Valith space, hunting every colony, every station, every ship that tried to flee. The Valith sent diplomats begging for peace. The humans killed them and kept attacking. They sent their greatest warriors to defend their remaining worlds. The humans destroyed them without slowing down. They sent their children into hiding on remote moons and asteroids. The humans found them dead in 3 months. The Valith were gone. A species that had existed for 200,000 years, erased from the universe like a mistake on paper. Their worlds were graves. Their ships were debris. Their people were memories, and soon even those would fade. The galactic hegemony watched in horror. They had never seen anything like this. Controlled pruning was meant to be quick and clean, a surgical removal of dangerous species. This was not surgery. This was butchery. This was rage made into military strategy. The Hegemony Council gathered to discuss what to do. Some demanded war against humanity, immediate and total. Others pointed out that the humans had just destroyed an entire species in 3 months. Perhaps war was not wise. While they argued, the Axiom Collective made their own decision. They sent a peacekeeping fleet to human space, 2,000 ships carrying the best weapons the Hegemony possessed. Their mission was to contain the human threat, To show them that the galaxy would not tolerate such violence, the fleet met the human armada at the edge of veilless space. The hegemony commander broadcast a demand for humanity to stand down, to return to their world, to accept punishment for their crimes. Admiral Chun's response was brief. You sanctioned the murder of our people. You gave the orders. You watched it happen. You are not peacekeepers. You are accomplices. And you are next. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it ended, 2,000 hegemony ships were scattered wreckage, and not a single human vessel had been lost. Admiral Chun broadcast one final message to the galaxy. We did not ask for this war. We did not want it. But we will finish it. Anyone who stands with the hegemony will share their fate. Anyone who stands aside will be left in peace. Choose wisely. We are coming. Across the galaxy, species that had served the hegemony for thousands of years began to question their loyalty. The humans had done the impossible. They had destroyed a hegemony client race and defeated a hegemony fleet. The old order was cracking, and through the cracks, something new and terrifying was emerging. In her quarters on the Remembrance, Admiral Chun looked at a picture of her daughter, who had died on New Geneva. She did not smile. She did not cry. She simply whispered, "We're not done yet, sweetheart." Not even close. The galaxy had learned to fear humanity. But humanity was just getting started. 1 year had passed since the massacre of the human colonies. 1 year since the galaxy had learned that humanity existed. In that time, everything had changed. The Veilith were extinct. The hegemony peacekeeping fleet was destroyed. Species across the galaxy watched their screens and saw the impossible. An unknown race from a small world had challenged the greatest power in history and was winning. The galactic hegemony was falling apart. In the capital of the Maridax Federation, leaders argued about what to do. The Maridax had served the hegemony for 8,000 years. They had helped with controlled pruning, had provided ships and soldiers to destroy countless young species. Now they faced a choice: stay loyal and face human revenge, or break away and hope for mercy. The humans have no quarrel with us, one leader said. We did not attack their worlds. If we leave the hegemony now, perhaps they will spare us. And if they don't, what defense do we have? We have no defense either way. Did you see what they did to the Veilith? To the peacekeeping fleet? Nothing can stop them. Our only hope is that they choose to let us live. Similar conversations happened on 100 worlds. Species that had followed the hegemony without question for thousands of years were suddenly discovering fear. The old order had promised safety. It had promised that obedience meant protection. Now that promise was broken, and everyone scrambled to save themselves. Admiral Chun watched the reports from human intelligence officers and felt grim satisfaction. The hegemony was breaking from within. Their alliance was built on fear, and now there was something more frightening than the Axiom Collective. That something was humanity, but she knew the war was not over. The Axiom themselves had not yet acted. The 12 ancient species at the heart of the hegemony possessed technology beyond anything humanity had seen. They had ruled for 40,000 years. They would not surrender easily. We need to show them we can reach anywhere, Admiral Chun told her staff. We need to prove that nothing in this galaxy is safe from us. Then, maybe, they will understand that fighting is pointless. The Terran fleet began a new campaign. They did not seek to conquer territory or destroy civilian populations. Instead, they targeted military installations across hegemony space. Shipyards where warships were built. Weapons factories that supplied the hegemony armies. Command centers where admirals and generals made their plans. Human ships appeared without warning, struck with overwhelming force, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. The unstable jump points that everyone else feared had become humanity's greatest weapon. They could be anywhere, at any time. No defense could stop them because no one knew where they would attack next. But alongside the destruction, the humans did something unexpected. They showed mercy. On the planet Korath, human forces destroyed a massive orbital station that built warships. 10,000 workers lived on that station. Any other attacking force would have killed them all. Instead, the humans gave them 2 hours to evacuate before the attack began. Every single worker survived. On the moon of Thesan, human soldiers captured a hegemony command center. The officers there expected execution. Instead, the humans took their weapons, downloaded their data, and released them with a message. Tell your masters we could have killed you. Tell them we chose not to. Tell them to think about what that means. Word spread across the galaxy. The humans were terrifying, yes. They had erased an entire species without hesitation. But they were not mindless killers. They chose their targets carefully. They punished those who attacked them and spared those who had not. There was logic to their violence, a code that could be understood. We are not what they made us become, Admiral Chun broadcast to the galaxy. We chose to stop at the Valeth. We chose to spare civilians. We choose who lives and who dies. Pray that we never change our minds about you. Species began defecting from the hegemony openly now. The Meridax declared neutrality. The Korath Union pulled its ships back to home space. The Thesan Collective sent diplomats to human territory asking for peace. One by one, the allies of the hegemony were abandoning their masters. The great alliance that had ruled the galaxy for 40,000 years was crumbling. Like sand in running water. The Axiom Collective finally decided to act. Deep in the heart of hegemony space, they possessed a weapon that even their closest allies knew nothing about. It was called the Stellar Igniter, and it had been built long ago to end wars that could not be won. The device could trigger any star to explode, turning an entire solar system into fire. Nothing could survive. Nothing could escape. The Axiom planned to use it on Earth's sun. One flash of light and the human homeworld would be destroyed. Their colonies were already gone. Without Earth, humanity would have nowhere to live, nowhere to rebuild, nowhere to grow. They would scatter across the galaxy as refugees, weak and broken, easy to hunt down and finish. A single ship carried the Stellar Igniter toward human space. It was small and fast, designed to slip past defenses and reach the sun before anyone could stop it. The crew believed they were saving the galaxy. They believed they were heroes. They were wrong. Human intelligence had learned about the weapon months ago. Spies within hegemony space had discovered the plan and sent warnings to Earth. Admiral Chun knew the ship was coming. She knew its route. She knew exactly when and where to intercept it. The ambush was perfect. Human ships appeared around the Axiom vessel like wolves surrounding a deer. The crew tried to fight back, but they were overwhelmed in seconds. When the shooting stopped, the ship was intact. Its weapons safely captured. Engineers aboard the Remembrance studied the Stellar Igniter with a mixture of horror and fascination. It was beautiful in a terrible way, a device that could kill billions with the press of a button. In less than 2 weeks, they understood how it worked. In less than a month, they could build their own. Admiral Chun ordered a new broadcast to the galaxy. This time, she included technical diagrams, complete documentation, everything needed to understand what the Axiom had built. "This is what your masters created," she said. "This is what they were willing to use against us. A weapon that destroys suns. A weapon that kills everyone in a solar system, guilty and innocent alike. They told you they kept the peace. They told you they protected the galaxy. They lied. They built this to murder anyone who challenged them. Today it was aimed at us. Tomorrow it could be aimed at you. Now you know what they truly are." The broadcast spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. Species that had trusted the hegemony for thousands of years learned that their protectors had been willing to burn suns. Shock turned to anger. Anger turned to rebellion. In the Axiom Council chamber, the 12 ancient species watched their empire collapse. Their allies were gone. Their secret weapon was captured. Their reputation was destroyed. For the first time in 40,000 years, they faced an enemy they could not defeat, could not buy, could not scare into submission. The eldest Axiom, a being who had lived since before humanity discovered fire, spoke into the silence. They are not just fighting for revenge anymore. They are fighting to end us. Everything we built, everything we ruled, everything we believed was permanent. They want to erase it all. Then we must surrender, another said. We must beg for terms while we still have something to offer. Will they accept? After what we tried to do, no one had an answer. No one knew what humanity wanted anymore. They only knew that the humans were coming, and nothing in the galaxy could stop them. On the bridge of the Remembrance, Admiral Chun looked at a star map showing the hegemony's heart. The Axiom homeworld sat at the center, a Dyson sphere surrounding an artificial star. The greatest achievement of the greatest civilization in galactic history. Set course for the core, she said. It's time to end this. The final battle was coming, and the stars themselves held their breath, waiting to see what humanity would do when they finally reached the throne of the galaxy. The Axiom Dyson sphere was the greatest structure in the galaxy. It surrounded an artificial star, capturing all of its energy to power a civilization that had ruled for 40,000 years. Millions of beings lived on its inner surface, and cities that made Earth's largest metropolis look like a small village. This was the heart of the galactic hegemony, the throne of the Axiom Collective, the center of everything. Admiral Lyra Chun's fleet emerged from the unstable jump points less than an hour from this great structure. 2,000 human ships, carrying weapons that could break worlds and soldiers, who had nothing left to fear. The Axiom had gathered every ship they could find to defend their home. Over 10,000 vessels formed a wall between humanity and the Dyson sphere. It was the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history. Against any other enemy, it would have been overwhelming. The humans did not slow down. All ships, advance, Admiral Chun ordered. Standard assault formation. Prometheus swarms at ready. Orpheus missiles armed. The battle began with light. Energy weapons fired across the void, painting space in colors that had no names. Ships exploded on both sides. The Axiom fought with the desperation of beings who knew they were facing extinction. The humans fought with the cold precision of people who had already lost everything that mattered. For 6 hours, the two fleets tore at each other. The Axiom had numbers and experience. The humans have better weapons and nothing to lose. Slowly, terribly, the defenders began to fall back. Their lines broke. Their ships retreated. And still the humans kept coming. Admiral Chun watched the battle from her command chair. Her uniform was stained with coffee and sweat. She had not slept in 2 days. Around her, officers relayed information and gave orders, keeping the fleet moving like a single living creature. Enemy fleet is falling back to the sphere, her first officer reported. They're abandoning the outer defense. Don't pursue, Chun said. We didn't come here to destroy their fleet. We came here to talk. The human fleet stopped at the edge of the Dyson sphere's defenses. Behind them, the wreckage of thousands of ships drifted in the void. Ahead, the greatest fortress ever built waited in silence. Admiral Chun opened the communication channel. This is Admiral Lyra Chun of the United Terran Authority. I request a meeting with the Axiom Collective. Not to discuss surrender terms. Not to threaten or demand. Simply to talk face to face before any more blood is spilled. For a long moment, there was no response. Then, slowly, a path opened through the defensive grid. A single human shuttle was allowed to approach the sphere's surface. The meeting chamber was vast and ancient. 12 seats surrounded a circular table, each one occupied by a being older than human civilization. They had different shapes, different colors, different numbers of limbs and eyes. But they all shared the same expression: exhaustion and fear. Admiral Chun walked into the chamber alone, unarmed, unafraid. She was 70 years old now, worn down by 2 years of war. But her eyes were still sharp, and her voice was still strong. "You know why I'm here," she said. "You know what I can do. My fleet can crack this sphere open like an egg. We can kill everyone inside. We can end 40,000 years of history in a single day." The eldest Axiom spoke, his voice like wind through dry leaves. "Then why haven't you? We tried to murder your entire species. By your own logic, you should be burning our world right now." Chun walked to the wall, where massive murals depicted the history of the hegemony. Scene after scene showed the same story: a young species reaching for the stars, and the hegemony cutting them down before they could grow. "How many?" she asked quietly. "How many species did you destroy?" 2,316, the elder answered. "Over 40,000 years." Chun closed her eyes. She thought about what those numbers meant. Trillions of lives. Countless cultures, arts, sciences, dreams. All of it erased because the hegemony decided they might become dangerous someday. "You could have welcomed them," she said. "You could have taught them, traded with them, built something together. Instead, you murdered them before they had a chance to prove what they could be. We believed it was necessary. We believed we were protecting the galaxy. You were protecting yourselves. Your power. Your control." Chun turned to face the Axiom. "And now that's over. The question is, what happens next?" The Axiom leaders looked at each other. They had expected demands for unconditional surrender, executions of their leaders, destruction of their civilization. They had not expected a question: "What do you want?" The elder asked. Admiral Chun took a deep breath. "The hegemony dissolves. Every species you've conquered goes free. Every weapon you've hidden gets destroyed or handed over. You will never again decide which civilizations deserve to live. And the Axiom? What happens to us?" Chen's expression was hard to read. "You live, but you have a new purpose. For the rest of your existence, you will travel the galaxy. You will visit every world, every species, every civilization that will listen. And you will tell them what you did. You will tell them about the 2,000 species you erased. You will tell them what happened when you tried to erase humanity. You will be witnesses to your own crimes forever." The chamber fell silent. This was not conquest. It was something stranger, something no one had ever done before. The humans had won the war, and instead of destroying their enemies, they were turning them into a living monument to their own mistakes. "We accept," the elder said finally. "We have no choice. But tell me, Admiral, why? You could have killed us all. Your people wanted revenge. Why show mercy now?" Chun looked at the elder for a long moment. "Because someone has to be the first to stop. Because if we destroyed you, we would become what you were. Because my daughter died on New Geneva, and I don't think she would want me to spend my life killing. I think she would want me to build something better." The war ended that day. Not with a great battle, but with a conversation. The hegemony dissolved. The Axiom began their long journey of confession. Species that had been slaves for thousands of years discovered freedom. And humanity, the small race from a small world that no one had ever noticed, became something new. Not rulers, not conquerors, just guardians of a peace they had earned with blood and fire. 50 years passed. On a quiet world at the edge of the galaxy, an old woman sat in a garden watching the sunset. Admiral Lyra Chun had retired long ago, leaving the fleet and the politics and the responsibilities to younger hands. Now she spent her days growing flowers and watching the stars come out at night. A young alien child ran up to her, scales shimmering in the fading light. The child's grandmother followed slowly, nodding respectfully to the human who had changed the galaxy. "Grandmother," the child asked, "why does everyone talk about the humans like they're special? They don't look scary to me." The grandmother laughed softly. "They're not trying to be scary anymore, little one. That's the whole point. But you said they fought a war against everyone. You said they destroyed whole worlds. They did. When someone hurt their children, they became more dangerous than anything the galaxy had ever seen." The grandmother sat down beside Chun, who smiled at the conversation. But then they stopped. They could have ruled the galaxy through fear. Instead, they chose to give everyone a second chance. That's why we talk about them. Not because they were powerful, but because they chose to use that power wisely. The child thought about this for a moment. "Will there ever be another war?" Chun answered before the grandmother could. "Maybe someday. The universe is big, and not everyone learns from history. But if anyone attacks Earth again, they'll discover that we haven't forgotten how to fight. We just prefer not to." The child nodded seriously, then ran off to chase fireflies in the gathering darkness. The grandmother watched her go, then turned to Chun. "Thank you for everything." Chun shook her head. "I'm not a hero. I just did what had to be done, and then I stopped before it went too far. Anyone could have done the same. But you did it. That's what matters." Above them, the stars came out one by one. Somewhere among them, the Dyson sphere still stood, now a memorial to every species the hegemony had destroyed. Carved into its surface, in every language known to the galaxy, was humanity's final message. We did not want this war. We did not start this war. But we finished it. And we will finish any war brought to us. The stars are no longer silent because they fear us. They are silent out of respect for the dead and for the living who carry their memory. Harm our children again, and we will remind you why you once feared the dark. But if you come in peace, you will find us the best friends you could ever have." Admiral Chun looked up at the stars and thought about her daughter, about the 6 million who had died, about the billions more who had been lost on all sides before the killing stopped. She wished none of it had happened. She wished she could have lived a quiet life, never knowing what war truly meant. But she also knew that sometimes terrible things happen. And when they do, someone has to stand up and make sure they never happen again. Humanity had paid a terrible price to learn that lesson. Now the galaxy knew it too. The stars fell silent because they finally understood something that hegemony never had. True strength is not the power to destroy. True strength is the power to destroy and the wisdom to choose not to.